Hey guys, so this is What If Deku was Santa's Son Part 1. And guys, I'm doing this like at I think 1 o'clock in the morning. I just got to get this done because today my family's gonna be coming over for Christmas and I'm probably not gonna have quiet time or any type of time alone to record this without people staring at me, so I have to do it now or after Christmas. And I didn't want to record it after Christmas and upload it after Christmas. So I'm uploading it now on the 23rd, so I can upload it. I'm recording it now on the 23rd, so I can upload it on the 25th, so I don't have to record on Christmas. So yeah. So guys, I am gonna be doing another video after this. I'm gonna be doing, some anime what ifs, not my Hero Academia what ifs or my Young Justice what ifs. I will be doing Young Justice Part 6 of What If Spider-Man was in Young Justice, and after that I'm gonna be uploading what if Katsuba or Katsuki, I can't remember his name, the guy from Subaru or the guy from the Aqua anime. Basically, if you have the Omnitrix, also I'll be uploading what if Irma had the Omnitrix Part 3. So I'm just gonna get into it, guys, immediately. We start our story off with, well, none other than Saint Nicholas as a young lad, or at his origin. His origin would be similar to Santa Claus in a sort of fashion that in this universe, Santa Claus would start off being a human, born in the medieval era, like most of his origin stories are, and he will be born as a normal child. As he was a child, he was always kind-hearted, same mentality or personality as Deku. He was always kind-hearted and always helped people. He put other people in front of his own needs and always loved people no matter what. He always knew his he always knew and he always wanted to, know and pass on this message that anybody is allowed a second chance. Anybody can change, no matter who they done wrong or who they are. Doesn't matter what they've done, they can always have a second chance. Basically, that's what Santa, believed. So basically, as he goes through his world, he would be born, he would be raised very nicely from a kind-hearted family. And what happened is that he would basically make his own type of, future for himself. As he was a young lad, about maybe in his, maybe like in his 20s, like early 20s, like when he was on his 21st birthday. Basically, we see Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus, basically him going on a adventure, because in this canon, he would be pretty much a adventure type of person. Basically, as he would go through adventures, taking down dragons and fighting alongside knights alongside his adventures, he would have a glorious first years of his life. Basically, when he turned 30, that's when he would start to realize that he was growing, or his hair was turning white. Now, his hair shouldn't be turning white when he just turned 30, but for some reason it was. Over time, Saint started to see different changes throughout his body. Over time, he started to see that his body was changing, that his body became more powerful. Now, he would become, bigger, not bigger as in, fat, because I'm not going to turn Santa fat, because in multiple continuity, in the Marvel comics, Santa's a mutant that's just straight up jacked and can warp reality. And in another instance, Santa is just a guy that's immortal. But basically, pretty much, we see that Saint Nicholas over time eventually sees weird things happening, like how he isn't aging when he turned 30, and that his hair is just turning white and his beard constantly grows and he can never shave it. And basically, it growing in, the iconic Santa beard, but it never going down. As Santa's life goes on, we see that over time he starts to realize that he's not aging at all, and that, he's getting more muscular and way more in the best shape he's ever had. Basically, us getting revealed that, none other than Santa would be the very first quirk person. His quirk would be OP in the terms of that he is immortal and he's immortal, or he just can't die from natural means. He's hard to kill, but you can still kill him. Kind of like how you can decapitate Wolverine, and he most likely won't come alive, but he's came back from a drop of blood, so I don't really know this. I don't really know if that's a canon or not, but whatever. So basically, as we get shown this, we pretty much, well, the entire thing is that, well, Saint Nicholas's powers. Let me go over his powers and his power set. Pretty much his power set is that he is all immortal. Like, he doesn't die from any natural means, and he can't die from any type of disease, meaning diabetes, cancer. Nothing can really kill him. He can be killed by lethal means, like getting shot, burned alive, or maybe even getting stabbed to death. But he cannot die from any type of disease, virus, or natural means. So he can only die from, man-made type of violent acts against him, like getting shot or something. And basically, pretty much, Santa over the years, you know, durable makes his body more durable because over the years his body has shown multiple different quirks. Because he would have multiple different quirks on top of being immortal and also being able to overcome any type of disease or virus. And the other abilities that he would have that would give him that whole entire, that whole time manifest of him being Santa, he would also have the ability to teleport into a pretty much, it was a shiny red cloud, pretty much like a sparkle type of cloud that he can pretty much, go through all sorts of tight, pretty much places like vents, ventilation systems, walls, cracks through walls, and even bubbles through concrete, or maybe even just straight up anything that has just the slightest amount of air that can pass through it. Basically, Santa being able to teleport, but also turn into a mist that can go through anything. Basically, he would also have the ability of extra senses, so he would have an extra sense, as in that his senses would be on par with Daredevil, but not as powerful as Daredevil's senses, but able to, mimic some abilities like Spider-Man's Spider Sense or Daredevil's, reaction time. So basically, he's kind of on the level of Spider-Man and Daredevil, but weaker than both of them. But he can still dodge bullets and dodge arrows and stuff like that. And basically, pretty much over time, we see more abilities coming from Claws, him having a type of superhuman durability, because he's hard to kill, yes, but he can still be killed. But his superhuman durability isn't OP. He just can take a lot of beating, like getting ran over by a car, getting hit with a bus, getting pretty much thrown off a building, and sometimes even being hit up the side of the head with a metal bat at full strength by somebody with a strength quirk, like All Might or something, or him taking a punch from All Might or from One for All, or maybe even somebody at the same strength level or power, maybe even somebody from the same strength level as Wonder Woman or Green Lantern and Aquaman. But nobody like Superman. He can easily be killed by somebody like Superman. But yeah, so basically, pretty much his powers are pretty, good. And he also has a type of extra ability called, well, magic. Basically, he can just warp reality. That's what I'm trying to put in it. Laming terms, he can literally do whatever he wants. Or not whatever he wants, but he can basically use unlimited amount of power as long as it's a constant flow of energy passing towards him. If somebody believes in him, or somebody believes in the, you know, hope of Christmas spirit, their emotional power or their quirk in terms of, their power is transferred to Saint Nicholas. So over time, as he became Santa, he delivered gifts and stuff like that. Basically, over time, pretty much, well, he would start to gain even more quirks on top of quirks. So anybody that believed in him at one point in time, or, what was it, believe in the Christmas spirit, or just loves Christmas, their quirk would be copied and pasted onto Santa's body, or into his body. So he would be a type of god, essentially, because he would be way powerful than All for One. And he'll be OP as freak, bro. He'll be like Dark Side or Thanos' level of strength, because he would have nearly every quirk known to man. Because if one point, I mean, like, just if you don't believe in anyone, at one point, if you believe in Santa, your quirk would be copied and pasted to Santa, meaning that Santa could use your quirk, and he would have an unlimited amount of quirks. Plus, since he was immortal, he would eventually gain a power called, well, what was it? Immortal thought. Basically, that quirk gave him the ability to, remember things without being flooded with information, because the main flaw of immortality, if you live forever, eventually your brain won't be able to process all those memories and all those years you lived. Eventually, your brain would have to completely erase memories or just stuff them in there, and you'll be essentially just brain dead or just stuffed with too much information. Basically, we see that Santa over time would use his power to become Santa. And basically, we skip a couple thousand centuries later, a couple of years, where we see the canon time about 2 years before Deku or Asashi in canon, or even before the conception of Deku would be, thought of. Basically, we see our, a young maiden, or basically Inko. As we see Inko, basically, oh, sorry, guys. No, that doesn't work out. No. We skip a couple years later after Santa, or after the first, 10 years of Santa being Santa, we see that he comes across another young lady, basically Inko's great ancestor in this timeline. Basically, her being another person in the world with a quirk, meaning that every witch or warlock or any type of folklore about animals and people with powers and witches and or whatever, those are all be quirk people in this universe, meaning that pretty much quirks would be around or around the world way longer than originally in canon in My Hero Academia. So Inko would come across Santa. Basically, Santa would look at her and instantly they would have a spark between each other. We skip a couple years later, and as they, find their way, they date a few times. He takes her to the North Pole, and also the other stuff. And stuff starts to progress over there. They eventually get married, and pretty much 1,000 years later, we see that they start having a family. And since pretty much Santa wouldn't become so old and jolly and fat in this canon, he would look fat because sometimes a couple minutes after he morphed back into his human form through the smoke or the mist, he would look kind of plumpy. So that's how the common misconception of Santa being fat would start off, or will start. Basically, Santa would look similar like MC. It looks similar to Marvel Comics Santa, the Jack type of Santa, but pretty much his body build will be similar to Daredevil or Iron Fist body build, like kind of like Spider Man, but a little bit more muscular, kind of like Captain America's type of body build or Thor's body. Basically, him being pretty, jacked, but not too bulky like Hulk or whatever. But basically, he would, have the same Santa type of look as Santa from Christmas Chronicles on Netflix. Check it out if you've seen it. You've seen it. Basically, he would look kind of like that Santa. So basically, he would be, a cool looking, radical, cool Santa. Basically, Inko, he basically just Inko in Mrs. Claus outfit, and pretty much her just, her still having green hair, because pretty much Santa would have picked up a quirk later on in life, a quirk called transfer, and he transferred the gift of immortality to Inko. Inko had a quirk called telekinesis, so she had the same quirk she had in canon, but it was OP. So she straight up on just telekinesis, like Jean Grey or Magneto's type of telekinesis, just straight up telekinesis. Not attraction power, just not like attraction. Like she can attract items towards her hands. No, she could straight up just use telekinesis. So that's her power. And since he would use a quirk over time he got called transfer, he was able to copy his immortality and paste it onto Inko. So he would still have his immortality because that was his original quirk, alongside his other superhuman abilities before he got that, before his other quirk, magic, or his other quirks, Christmas Spirit, activated. So he would get all those extra quirks, but on top of that, he would find a quirk that would be able to copy his already existing powers and give them to others. So he was able to give his power to Inko, but the only flaw with this quirk is that it can only be used 3 times ever. I mean, after 3 times, the quirk is useless and is virtually just it's just gone. So pretty much at what he did, he used his first time to pretty much give Inko immortality so they can live together, and Inko was happy with this. Inko and him lived a happy couple years in Christmas Town, and eventually Santa would have made Santa's elves. They would be elves from folklore, and they would have kind of a deal with Santa to live in pretty much Christmas Town with unlimited type of resources and multiple other things, because Santa would have a bunch of quirks, including a quirk that can just make just straight up just make resources. Like I mean, just make food, make trees, buildings, whatever, just by a flick of the hand. Quirk would be called resources. So the quirk just gave the person unlimited resources, so they never would have to rely on, what was it, military or government resources, so they would never have to pay bills or anything like that. So yeah, so basically that's how Santa would make Christmas Town in this canon or in this universe, and pretty much that's how we're gonna skip a couple centuries later, where we see that Inko over the centuries she would try to make a family with, well, claws, but over time they would see that it never worked, that their immortality always strike them and never let them have a child until that changed about like a year, about like five years before Deku would be originally born in canon. We would see that pretty much a type of, what was it, a person in the world that would be born with a very unique quirk called pretty much a very unique quirk called Master It, or pretty much called was it dampener. So he would get a dampening quirk that can temporarily turn off a person's quirk. So what he would do is temporarily turn off their immortality for a day or two, and eventually they would make a child, making Deku. And that temporary quirk dampening ability, he would use it, it would basically use he would use it on Inko after he turned his quirk back on, because he didn't really need it, because Inko needed to stay mortal for her to give birth to Deku. Deku was born a couple years later because, well, let's just say a baby being born with immortality takes a lot longer than just 9 months. So basically, we see that Deku was born and he's raised. Since he's immortal, he actually ages a lot slower. We switch a couple 4 years later, and Deku's about, let's say, in like baby terms, like he's like 4 years old, but he looks like he's 5 months. So basically, we can skip a couple years later, blah blah blah, or we skip the canon time, or about about 2 months before the 10-month arc training, where we see Deku 16. Pretty much his aging is all whacked. His aging is all weird and wonky, but eventually he starts to grow up and eventually gets to the age of 15. Basically, as he turns 15, he's, the same type of body build that he was in canon, but just actually has that muscularity that he had doing the quirk assessments or doing after the training with All Might. So he would have a type of Daredevil or type of Spider-Man type of body. Basically, him having the type of, muscular, skinny, swimmer type of body. Kind of like Miles Morales' skinny, small type of muscular body. So basically, we see that pretty much Deku would have been born with a array of quirks, and he would be born with 3 specific quirks that would give him, well, the edge and all that other stuff. Let's get to it, guys. Basically, the first quirk he would have is immortality, like his father and his mother. Basically, him having the same immortality as his father and his mother, him being able to be killed, but people having a hard time to try to kill him. Basically, put it short. The other The other second quirk would be Deku would have a quirk called Well Spirit. Basically, he can basically absorb the spirit or the Christmas spirit in the air, or anybody that believe in Santa, even after Christmas. He could absorb that energy from them and transfer it into physical strength. Basically, like on Christmas Eve or in December month, he basically becomes super strength type of person. Like he can use a type of super strength in his body. So pretty much, as long as it's an array of people, like 1,000 or 1,000,000,000 people, thinking or just that still believe in Santa, especially children, he can transfer their Christmas spirit into his body, basically manifesting superhuman strength and just a bunch of other stuff. Basically, him being able to use superhuman strength, speed, and durability with this spirit quirk. But he can semi use it during other months or years with and not near Christmas. So he can, pretty much mimic the strength and speed of Spider-Man. But if he's, straight up, if it's like December or whatever, and like Christmas spirit's at his peak, he's basically a Superman levels of strength. But for now, since it's not really Christmas time in the My Hero timeline at this point, he would basically just be the same strength level as young Spider-Man from the Ultimate series, and the same speed as Spider-Man from the Ultimate series. And basically, and also he would have his third quirk would be called pretty much Christmas Dash. Pretty much his third quirk would be a type of super speed. Now, pretty much speed I'm talking about with his spirit quirk is like reaction speed, not foot speed or not running speed, just reaction time. But with this quirk, it's actually running speed slash reaction time. Basically, his running speed, Christmas Dash, is that he can literally just run at like Sonic levels of speed. I mean, Flash, Quicksilver, Sonic. I mean, run faster than the literal embodiment of speed itself. Basically, he literally has the force, like, he can run faster than the actual speed force itself. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is he's kind of a speed god with this quirk, but he can only use it 3 times a day. Basically, it only a dash. So he can run about 1,000 miles, but the second he stops with his super speed quirk, he only has two tries left, and then after 2 other tries, after he uses it 3 times a day, he's basically have to wait another day for it to recharge. So yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is that Deku can run incredibly fast. But the second he stops running, or he trips or falls as he's doing the Christmas dash, or as he's running the super speed, and as he runs the super speed, he turns into a kind of just a straight up big burst of just a white sparkling or shining blur, kind of like a bolt of just pure white light. So basically, pretty much, he's, he's pretty strong, and pretty much he would also pretty much that would be his base 3 quirks he would be born with. Basically, they can be all one quirk, but they're mainly 3 separate quirks, but all of them together is called Christmas Power. And basically, that would be a quirk he would actually get from his father on his 15th birthday, because at this point, when he was born, when he activated or mastered most of all his quirks, it would be his 15th birthday. And pretty much the crazy thing about it is that he would be born on a Christmas. And pretty much, he would be born on Christmas about the night, like, what was it? The night of Christmas Day. Basically, pretty much, you see that he would celebrate it at different times, but at this time of the year, he would be given a early Christmas present, like a months early, but nonetheless, he would given an early Christmas present by his father, right after his father was about to go on and do some mandatory checkups on Christmas Town. He would basically give his son a quirk a quirk, a gift. Basically, he would say thank you, and basically his quirk he would give his son, what he called Christmas Manifestation. Pretty much, his quirk would be called Christmas Manifestation, and he basically had the power. It basically be very similar to the unlimited resources quirk that his father had, but only limited to small handhold items. So he can basically make gifts that can be handholded or rid on, like a bike or a car or even a motorcycle, or a sword or axe or a gun or a shield, a lantern, anything handhold or you can ride on, but nothing like a house, a boat, or nothing like, a whole building or city, like how Santa can use his, unlimited resources power. And he cannot, and Deku can't make anything inorganic. So he can't make anything organic like food or an human being or an animal. So yeah. So basically, what happened is pretty much Deku would have known stories of, well, the human world, and would have asked his father if he can go there. Him wanting to become a hero, just like in canon. We'll give a little bit of dialogue, and I'm gonna skip over this because it's pretty simple. Deku just has a argument with his father, but eventually his father caves in, saying that you can go to the human world, basically giving Deku, telling Deku to be safe, and pretty much his son, he tried to just teleport his son to the human world or to Japan with just a flick of his hand because he just has that power. But he can teleport people and himself somewhere, but he can't teleport items. So like he has to still be on his sled to transfer stuff. But as he teleports his son away, his son is teleported to Japan with a bunch of money so he can actually buy some items or get a house or a place to stay. And basically, as this happens, we pretty much see that, well, Deku was told by his father, because his father would make a phone for him, a phone that can travel pretty much or send messages anywhere in the world, even from the North Pole to Japan, and pretty much tells Deku pretty much to stay safe and to not bring too much attention to yourself and to not tell them their secret. And pretty much Deku would tell his father that I know, and pretty much Deku would be told to pretty much do his best. And as we get switched to the main story, that is gonna be a long time, and I'm probably gonna go all up until the sports festival, and after that we'll get hit with the conclusion of the story. But let's just get into it, guys. We start our story off, and pretty much Deku, Unseen, Izuku Midoriya, pretty much, train for the next 10 months. As he's training for the next 10 months, pretty much he starts to use his powers in more, manifesting ways, using his power in pretty much, using his power in different ways, like shooting energy blast, not energy, sorry, he can't do that. Him just manifesting or just training his physical body. As he's doing this, we see that pretty much over time, he gets better and better, and he still builds up the same body that he had in canon. Now, basically, we see that pretty much he perfected his body, because naturally his physical body that he had in the North Pole, even though it was the same build that he had in canon, would just be more perfected and a little bit more better. Basically, as we switch to Deku, on the 10 months, because Deku wouldn't really need to train, so he already trained in the North Pole with his father, because his father was an adventurer / knight, so he had a lot of experience with sword fighting and hand-to-hand combat. So Deku was pretty good in hand-to-hand combat, like boxing or kickboxing, or straight up just fighting. He was pretty handy in that. But also in other terms, Deku would also have a power. He would also have not power. He would also be very skilled in sword fighting, like about in fencing. So he'd be pretty skilled in sword fighting, about the same level as the swordsman from the swordsman from Marvel Comics, or the same level of skill with swords, with swords like a knight or a samurai or a ninja. Him being pretty handy with swords, shurikens, and small handhold weapons. Basically, you see that he was always told
that motive that Santa had when he was a child about how everybody can get a second chance and to always have faith in people and to always have hope and to never cross a line. Basically, him assuming that Deku knew the line and Deku did know the line. Don't kill. Basically, put it simple. But with Santa's powers, he can literally wipe the whole human race from the face of the earth. To put it simple, because he has literally every quirk of any person that's ever believed Santa, and that's mainly every person on the planet. Because at one point, guys, you had at one point, guys, you had to believe in Santa. At one point, guys, don't lie to me. At one point, you had to believe in Santa. At one point, in my experience, I don't remember. I was probably like, I don't even remember if I was 5 and I believed in Santa. I think I was about maybe I think I was probably like only 4 years old when I was told. 4 years old, and then after that, I think I didn't believe in Santa afterwards. Maybe because I saw my parents bring gifts into the house one time, or one time I saw my parents talk about how they're gonna buy the gifts. So I don't think I never believed in Santa for long. Basically, pretty much see that Deku well goes to Japan, just finding out about human, interaction, about everything. And Deku pretty much did have interaction with people and did have social skills because in this canon, the elves wouldn't be short people. They would just be people at the same, you know, pretty much level as like preteens. They wouldn't be short or like super short or like dwarves. Or they wouldn't be normal size. They would just be stuck at the same, the average height for a preteen or a 13-year-old. Basically, them not being as tall as a full grown man or a full grown woman. But basically, pretty much, you see like elves would have, well, pretty much over time, would have, well, would have, given Deku social skills, and Deku would know how to actually do some flirting because his father would be kind of a player before he came across Inko. Because I didn't really talk about this, but Santa would be kind of a player before he got his powers or before his quirk activated later on in his life. So basically, you see that Deku would have pretty much and guys, before I go on, I forgot to mention one more key thing. Basically, this key part of the story is that when a clause or when somebody from Santa's bloodline starts to grow or their hair starts to turn white, their quirk immediately becomes more powerful and they're given the magic quirk. The same quirk that gave Santa all of his extra abilities. Meaning that when Deku's hair turns white, he would automatically have to take up the mantle of Santa. Basically, with that quirk, the mantle of Santa is pretty easy. It's pretty easy. But yeah, so basically, we get switched to pretty much Deku going around Japan, just well, what was it? Accentuating himself with other residents there, and he would just know Japanese because his mother, over the years of her being mortal, she picked up, knowledge because she thought, knowledge is the best power of all. So, well, Deku would be taught with knowledge like his mother. Basically, him being taught most of every language: English, Japanese, Spanish, German, everything. He'd just be taught every language that was ever made, even Egyptian, or not even ancient language. Because Santa would pick up ancient languages because he would be straight up immortal. But he'd be born in the medieval times, so he wouldn't have complete like ancient, like not complete ancient language, but stuff like other things. But basically, we get switched to pretty much Deku would have gone around Japan, fighting other people, pretty much looking around Japan, just absorbing it until he came across a brown-haired woman or a brown-haired girl about the same age as him. As he would pretty much come across her,
and Deku would be just for like just reminding you, Deku would be about 15. Pretty much, we see that Deku would come across a brown-haired girl, Ochaku Uraraka, and pretty much she would have looked at Deku. In this canon, she actually wouldn't be in it for the money, and her parents would actually be financially okay, not rich, but financially okay, so they wouldn't be on the edge of being poor. So basically, yeah, so she wouldn't really be in the hero business for money. She would be in it mainly for the fact that she just wanted to do the world good. So her reasoning to being a hero would be different in this canon. But as we see, pretty much Deku would have pretty much what was it? Deku would have actually talked to Ochaku because in the street, he'd come across her, talk to her, and she would find kind of a attraction towards Deku. Seemed like he was kind of cute, and she would give him a chance, or try this, give this a chance if she thought it would be a thing, but it is gonna be a thing because this is gonna be a ship for the movie. Basically, we see that Deku talks to her, they flirt a little bit, go for coffee, and over the couple of months, their relationship starts to become more than just, time to time coffee buddies. They start to pretty much, well, show some feelings. Eventually, the last month of the training and the last month off from, the school or whatever, their relationship becomes better and they get closer, and eventually they do the devil's tango, if you could say it. They do the dirty. Basically, we see that Deku pretty much, well, first time ever does this, and he already had the birds and bees talk with his father and his mother already, so he already knows how it works. And pretty much, Ochaku was surprised that Deku was good. Sorry, guys. If you don't like this type of content, I'll just skip it over because I'm gonna give you a warning next time. But basically, pretty much after that, we see that pretty much Deku, well, and her become a kind of an official thing, and basically, we will see that pretty much Deku would have, well, gotten closer with Ochaki even more after their sleep or after you know, their romantic encounter, their most romantic encounter. And they would become, girlfriend and boyfriend. They would become like really flirty with each other, and straight up, they would virtually straight up just fall in love with each other. And basically, over time, we see Deku and Ochaku get closer and closer to like fiance type levels of bond. But all up until that, we will see that eventually the the entry exam would come, and basically the entry exam, pretty much in the center would be immortal and would also give himself multiple different, well, what was it, alternate different personas in the human world. He would have high people in high places, so he would get Deku an internship, and not get to, he would get Deku a recommendation, so Deku would go to the recommendation test, and Ochaku would do the entry exams. But she would wish Deku good luck, and pretty much she would go on there, pretty much her getting some good luck from Deku as well. Them sharing a kiss before they, do their whole entire, their entrance or their exams. Basically, after that, we get switched back to Deku, getting his note from UA that he got in, and Ochaku getting her note from UA that she got in. In this can, Ochaku wouldn't be crushed because she would actually have training with Deku because, well, they were together for months and Ochaku wanted to be a hero. So she obviously asked Deku to train her because she knew that Deku was pretty muscular and he also had a quirk because he used it at sometimes in front of them when he, manifested a fork, when he didn't have one, when they went out to eat, or manifested some money out of nowhere because Deku can manifest money because he can manifest hand-holded items or hand-holded things, meaning that Deku could straight up just manifest a thousand bucks, or just 6K in his hand, or 5K, or just $300. Any type of amount of money that can fit in the palm of his hand, or in both of his hands at the same time. Deku can literally just make a limited amount of money. So yeah, so basically, we see that pretty much Deku and Ochaku pretty much did train over the months, and Ochaku did get better in like reaction time and physical capability because she was training her reaction time and her, punching and her skill by Deku. And she would be taught some pointers of sword fighting, but she would never really take it up, actually try to incorporate sword fighting into her outfit. But basically, as it happens, we see pretty much, well, we see pretty much she, well, pretty much what was it? Is she, pretty much doesn't almost get crushed by the 0 point robot and actually gets out there and gets more points than original in canon. And pretty much, we see that pretty much she gets into UA and Deku gets into UA. They meet up with each other at the morning when they go to UA together. And, they kiss each other and pretty much they walk into UA holding hands. And basically, they stop holding hands so they get into class 1A. As they sit down across the room from each other because, the only two seats that are open in this canon because they showed up a little bit late. Not late, but right when everybody already got their seats. As we see, Azal wake up. Azal tells the class they're doing quirk sessions and then get out their lazy bums and then get in their gym clothes and meet him outside. As they go outside, pretty much
the class was taken outside. Pretty much, well, they would have been told about the exam, and then pretty much Deku would be told to throw the ball first, pretty much after Bakugo. Basically, he would grab the ball and chuck it at full strength, basically throwing it as far as Bakugo, about 2 centimeters faster, and no, 2 centimeters longer. And basically, after that, pretty much the long jump, Deku would ace that using his superhuman strength in his legs and his increased his increased strength, basically jumping over the sand pit with minimal effort. And basically, he would also use his Christmas dash, or pretty much his Christmas blitz, basically passing by everybody in the class, especially Ida, with his Christmas blitz, basically leaving smoky type of footsteps behind him when he blasted off. And basically, we see that he won the race with minimal effort. Grip test strength, Deku gets a pretty good score, and altogether Deku gets second place. Basically, after that, we see that everybody's sent back home, and Deku walks Chaku back home. Basically, Deku walks her home, and pretty much they talk a little bit, they flirt a little bit, and pretty much Chaku blurts something out, saying, "I love you, Deku," and pretty much her giving Deku starts to blush furiously. It tells her, and pretty much before he could finish his sentence, Oshaku's father says, the come in, it's getting cold outside, and pretty much, the come in is getting late outside, and basically, Oshaku tells Deku to pretty much, good night, and pretty much kisses him goodbye and walks into her house. We see that Deku's left there, shocked, and starts to smile. He walks off, skipping back to his apartment, or his penthouse, because he has a limited amount of money, and basically, we switch to the next day, or a couple days later, where we see that they're going home, and pretty much in this can, it would be raining for the first half of the morning. They would walk to school together. After that, we would see that they would go to school the next day, and pretty much after that, they would be in school, just minding their own business, until All Might would arrive. All Might would talk to them the same way, and introducing them and telling them to look towards the other side of the wall, where pretty much boxes or pretty much drawers would have appeared, us getting shown pretty much clothing, or straight up just us getting shown the students' clothing or hero costumes. Deku had smirking at his one. Pretty much he would open his and he would be met with a pretty good hero costume. So basically, Deku's hero costume would be something like this. Basically, something exactly like this, or this. Basically, Deku's hero costume would have, a couple of meanings. Now, pretty much his hero costume would be similar to kind of a fabric, fireproof, but a fabric very durable in terms, because his suit would be mainly flexible or street level, so he can still pull off, flips, acrobatic moves, and pretty much had access with his quirks and all other stuff. Basically, his suit not really having any Pacific or super like high tech, pretty much. Well, high tech things to it. And basically, his pretty much suit would have a backpack on it that would basically have a type of well a type of high tech type of teleport device. Basically, it would constantly open up kind of a gateway or kind of a portal way towards pretty much a room as big as a bank. So basically, Deku could just make multiple different items or swords and store them into his backpack, in case he ever got his quirk deactivated or his quirk was dampened, and he can just grab his sword or grab a sword or an item he manifested earlier and grab it out of his backpack. And also, since it is the size of a bank vault, he could semi hold a couple hundred gifts in there, kind of like Santa's bag. But Santa's bag is like straight up magic. Is actually magic because elves are magic. So straight up Santa's bag is straight up magic. So it can literally just stuff a infinity amount of things in it. So yeah. But as we see, pretty much, well, Deku get into his hero costume. Pretty much people compliment him, but some people think it's still kind of Santa-y. And pretty much Deku says it's supposed to be Santa kind of. It's supposed to be Santa type of. Everybody loves Santa. He's a symbol. People feel hope and kindness and warmth when they see him. Basically, him saying, it's a cool suit, and basically, as he gets ready, everybody gets ready in their hero costumes. They're paired up with their team. Deku is still paired up with Shaku, and they actually both of them are way more happy than can to be shipped up with each other. Deku pretty much tells Shaku, it's under his lead, and basically, Shaku and him will go across their same type of path, but as they come across Bakugo feels like Deku is a very powerful, person, but wants to bring him down to his level because, Bakugo can't stand people being stronger than him, or he can't stand being weaker than somebody. And Bakugo's just, a spoiled brat, in my opinion. But as we see, pretty much Deku and Bakugo cross paths. Bakugo throws the explosion towards Deku, saying Zuku Midoriya. Man, basically saying that I'm gonna put you in your place. Pretty much throwing explosions towards Deku. Deku dodges and tells Ochaku to go and try to tell down Ida while I take care of Bakugo. As she sprints off, we see that Deku goes to fight left and right against pretty much left and right against pretty much Bakugo as he throws punches, pretty much kicks punches away. Pretty much as it's happening, we see that Deku dodges more attacks over and over, and pretty much as this happens, we see that Deku tries to win the fight, him just using some of his superhuman strength, punching Bakugo in the stomach and throwing him into a wall through the wall. As Deku manifests a pretty much a giant type of wooden type candy cane, he whacks Bakugo upside the head with it. As he kicks Bakugo down to the ground, he starts to beat him senseless with a candy cane color themed silver bat he manifested after he threw with a cane. Pretty much he starts to hit the ever living, like just knuckles out of Bakugo. After he stops for a little minute, he tells Bakugo to get better and basically pretty much manifest a type of potion of sorts. Because he can just manifest any hold item. But the only weird thing is that he can manifest any handheld item or weapon that is possible. So, or is, well, anything. Meaning that well, he can manifest fictional weapons and handhold items. Meaning that he manifested a type of potion, aka straight up just a, health booster, kind of like in video games. And he makes Bakugo drink it, and Bakugo slowly starts to heal. As he sprints off, Bakugo gets back up, and Deku just sprints off. Deku's a kind person; doesn't really care if you're mean or not. He grew up with the mentality that anybody has a second chance. Sorry, guys. Now, basically, as we see pretty much Deku run off, you see that Deku pretty much runs off and pretty much comes across Ochaku. As he comes across Ochaku, we see that Ochaku is fighting with pretty much Ida, but as the room is like filled with floating stuff and whatever and whatnot, Deku just sprints on top of rock, jumping on them, and eventually comes up to Ida and pretty much manifests a chain of sorts, or makes a chain and wraps it around Ida's leg, making Ida trip. Basically, sorry guys, for the whole entire, fictional thing, Deku can manifest fictional items, but it takes a lot more willpower and a lot more focus to do that. So he really uses it. Basically, as we see Deku pretty much make a chain, he stops Ida, grabs the bomb after Ida drops it after he's tripped over the chain, and we see that pretty much Deku grabs the bomb and they win. Heroes win, villains lose. Bakugo is filled with rage as he runs up the stairs and sees them win, and pretty much it just peed off. After that, we get switched to pretty much the next day after they go back home, and we see that a couple days later, blah blah blah, and just normal school days, as we see them basically get told about the USJ. As they get told about the USJ, we see pretty much Deku. We see pretty much Deku. Well, after that, we see Deku basically. What was it? Sorry, guys. You see Deku basically gets, they get ready and they basically go to the USJ. They go to the USJ and pretty much they told about the USJ by Azal, blah blah. They get drove to the USJ in the bus. They still talk about who's the strongest in the class, and they kind of think it's Deku because Deku did show off a lot of strength. Because Deku was able to go up against Bakugo and take him out in like less than 60 seconds, and pretty much was able to take him out pretty quickly. And on top of that, he was able to also, stop Ida with just a chain that he manifested out of thin air. And Momo would kind of, see that, this is kind of cool because he had kind of a quirk similar to hers. Basically, she would try to flirt on Deku or hit on him because, he was rich because, like, he showed up in a pretty good car, not cars, but he showed up or in the streets when she came across him or saw him. He was always in good clothes, but most of the time he was with Ochaku. Since Momo didn't assume that Chaku was with him, pretty much she tried to flirt with him. He instantly shot her down, saying I'm with Ochaku, and pretty much she was kind of angered by this, but she just, scoffed it off. Her already having a crush on Todoroki. And basically, pretty much, we see that Deku and Ochaku would have just cuddling with each other, or just be sitting each other like really tight near each other, basically on the bus. As they're doing that, we see that they eventually come to the USJ, and we see them pretty much escorted into the USJ, and 13 gives the same speech. As she is giving the same speech, we see the villains show up and start to fight against them. Basically, 13 is told to get the kids out of here and keep them safe. When pretty much Azawa starts to fight back and starts to straight up just drop and straight up just fold every side villain here like an omelet. Eventually, 13 does get overpowered by the Shadow Core guy, Kirigiri, and basically the rest of the team is teleported, the rest of the class is teleported throughout the map the same way in canon. Deku is teleported down near the water area, and he manifests a boat or a raft type of area, or emergency raft type of, emergency raft type of, box or whatever. He pulls he pulls the string and it pretty much puffs up into an emergency raft. He falls into the ground and starts to swim off, or starts to paddle the emergency raft away, but it starts to get poked and pulled down by the villains. Basically, he manifests, or pretty much Deku manifests a swimming tank, or pretty much an oxygen tank, and puts it on himself. Basically, him saying deuces, and he swims into the water, basically manifesting some swords that can cut through water for some reason, just out of nowhere. Basically, him just cutting and keeping the pretty much villains at bay. Eventually, some villains get a hold of Deku's feet and start to drag him down to the water. And one of them cut Deku's oxygen tank and tries to drown him. As this is happening, pretty much Suyu jumps in, grabbing Deku and getting him out of the way, and jumping him and getting him onto the boat. As it happens, we see that they're just stranded, and Deku wakes up after a few minutes, about 10 minutes later. As he takes the oxygen tank off his body, he basically gets better and pretty much eventually makes a plan. He manifests a pretty long rope and pretty much makes a zip tie across the shore and the boat using a bow that he manifested or bow and arrow that he manifested to move the rope to the other side of the water towards the dock so they can make a zip line. As they get ready, they zip line towards the docks. When they were doing that, we see that Deku goes last, but he gets stuck halfway through, and is just stuck in the middle of the zip line. As he tries to swing his body back and forth, he eventually gets there, and he falls on his face towards the pretty much dock. Basically, him just a little bit of comedy relief. Basically, him just falling down to the ground like a dummy. Basically, after that, we see that pretty much Deku gets ready and pretty much runs off. Basically, as he runs off, trying to help other people or try to take out other villains, we see that the Nomu is fighting All Might after All Might arrived. All Might starting to fight the Nomu is starting to lose. Deku manifests a type of sword, pretty much him the running towards the what was it? Running towards the Nomu, slicing the Nomu's leg. The Nomu smacks Deku away like nothing into a tree, and pretty much people think he's dead. Deku is an Santa Claus with the claws aren't easy to kill, but basically Deku gets up, pretty much him coughing up some blood and him walking off since he did have type of superhuman durability. As he's, sitting down to the ground, we get switched to pretty much Shigaraki seeing them. As we see pretty much Suyu trying to, drag Deku away, not trying to let him get, hurt by Shigaraki. Shigaraki. Shigaraki tries to run towards them and grab them. As that happens, we see that Deku manifests a type of, what was it? Deku manifests a crowbar and smacks Shigaraki upside the head with it, pushing him back. As they run off, we see that Deku and them start to jog off, and pretty much as it happens, we see that Deku does have a type of limp. But as that happens, we see that pretty much the heroes arrive a little bit quicker because Ida was able to get out the way because the flashy redness of Deku's outfit did distract Kirigiri just a little bit, giving Ida the opportunity to sprint off and get out of the USJ and get the help of the heroes. As the heroes show up, they fight against the Nomu, and eventually the Nomu is taken down and defeated by All Might, just like in canon. And pretty much we see that Deku gets some medical attention because Deku did get badly injured, and a couple of his ribs were fractured, and his leg was sprained. Basically, we see that he does, get treated very quickly with this, and basically, is up and running for the next day. Basically, they do get a couple days off, and after the USJ event, we said Deku, after a couple days off, he gets visited by Ochaku, and they go on a couple more dates all the days they have off. After that, we get switched a couple of days later. When they come out to the UA, they get told about the whole entire thing about the sports festival. After that, pretty much Deku's kind of excited about this, and Deku was kind of excited about this. As this happens, we see that Deku, starts to train over the couple of days leading up to it, and eventually, it comes to it, and they get ready. Basically, we see pretty much Deku gets ready and gets pumped up for the sports festival, and pretty much gets into a sports outfit. As it happens, instead they get ready for it. And pretty much that's where we're gonna, I'm not gonna leave it off, but I am gonna be taking a break. It's probably gonna be a couple seconds for you, but it's gonna be about a day for me. See you guys later, or see you guys in a second. Okay, guys, are back. So basically, let's get into back into the story. Pretty much, we see Deku, gets excited and pretty pumped for this, and pretty much gets right into it. As Deku's in the waiting room, we see that Todoroki goes up against goes to Deku, talking to Deku about how he's gonna beat him without using his father's side, and Deku looks at him and saying, "Do I look like I care about your quirk? Bro, I'm just trying to have the best time of my life and become a hero. I don't really care about your
I don't really care about your problems, and I really don't understand how you think you can beat me. Deku giving off a kind of a, just not caring type of personality because Deku does not care. Like, Deku watched a lot of rom coms and a lot of cool guy TV shows when he was in the North Pole. So his social skills were good, but he had kind of a, let's just say, kind of like a Jack Frost type of personality. He was kind, yes, but he had like a Jack Frost type of cool guy, just not caring personality. Or not caring for other people's stupid things other than, his loved ones like Ochaku and his family. Now, basically, he tells Todoroki to get on somewhere, saying that I don't really care about your problems and that you should just shut up. And if you're gonna talk about how you don't like your father's, fireside, just forget about it. It's not even his quirk; it's yours, dummy. Like, bro. Basically, the class kind of chuckles at this because Todoroki was like just taught as a fool, and pretty much Deku did not really care about Todoroki's representation. He did not even want to humiliate this guy. He just didn't really care for Todoroki's bull. But as he does this, we see that Todoroki gets angrier, way more angrier, and tells Deku, "I'm gonna win. I'm gonna beat you brutally." Him walking off. We see that Deku scoffs and just walks off, walking or staying next to Ochaku. They start to talk, and Ochaku tells Deku pretty much, that why did you do Todoroki like that? He said Todoroki was talking bull, and I didn't really care for it. And if he's gonna talk about how he's gonna beat me with only half his power, I don't really want to hear it. Basically, pretty much Ochaku says, okay, and pretty much just, hugs Deku, and they get ready for, or just lay around until pretty much, well, they're called up to the front stage in the, pretty much, the, well, the middle of the tournament, I guess I think is what they called. Don't remember what the area is called. But pretty much we see that Miss Midnight calls up the person that got the highest score in the entrance exams, still Bakugo, because Bakugo had the entrance exams. Bakugo says he's gonna win, blah blah blah, and Deku just scoffs at this. The rest of the students still being angry at Bakugo still. As this happens, we get switched to pretty much Deku, pretty much, well, them getting ready. Pretty much, you see that Deku gets ready, and they get told for their first task or their first sport is a race. Pretty much, they start the race, and Todoroki uses his ice to freeze everybody behind and give him a head running start. Deku pretty much breaks through the ice with this increased superhuman strength and starts to sprint after Todoroki. As this happens, we see that Deku is fighting against the Zero fights against the robots and makes pretty much a type of cloud type of sword. Basically, him manifesting a giant cloud type of sword. Him cutting through the robots with the zero pointers pretty quickly. I mean, the one pointers pretty quickly, or the robots. Pretty much him cutting through them like butter. As he does this, he cuts through them pretty quickly, just slicing through them like butter. Eventually, coming across the zero pointer, the big giant robot. We see Todoroki still use the ice technique, freezing the zero pointer on a unsteady or a unbalanced mode. So as it freezes over, it cracks and tumbles down on Tetsu, Kirishima, and Deku. Deku manifests a Deku uses his pretty much, what was it, sword to cut a hole through the zero pointer before it crushes on him. Him jumping through the zero pointer right when Tetsu and Kirishima bust through it. As Deku runs after Todoroki at full speed, not letting him get away, we see that he sprints towards Todoroki, him chucking a sword at Todoroki's back, Todoroki dodging it, but him getting set off guard and him tripping, giving Deku another advantage, making Deku sprint past him. As this happens, Todoroki tries to freeze the ground in front of Deku, but Deku jumps over it, manifesting a jetpack and blasting off. We see that Deku blast off, him just, blasting off and him throwing his jetpack away, and him falling down to the ground and starting to sprint. As he comes across the canyon area, he uses his increased strength to jump to pillar on the canyon area, getting to area pretty quickly. And as he comes to the mind area, he manifests a shield or a type of FBI shield. He jumps on top of the. He still uses the same technique that he did in canon.
him building up a bunch of bombs with the shield and pretty much jumps on top of the bombs, blasting him forwards past Todoroki and Bakugo because Bakugo and Todoroki still got ahead of him. Basically, after that, you see that pretty much Deku still gets first place the same way they get in canon, and basically, he cheers and whatever and whatnot. Ochaku immediately joins Deku's team just because, they're dating and Ochaku loves Deku. And we see that pretty much Deku still gets the same team that he got in canon. Basically, they do the same type of tactic as an original canon. Basically, Deku with the fighting between him and Todoroki, he just uses a type of air gun that he manifested from a video game in this fictional continuity, a video game called Air Cannon. Basically, he just has a gun that shoots air pressure, the same air pressure force that Deku used in pretty much the canon. Pretty much the fight goes similar to the same, and they kind of do the same thing like in canon, but in this canon, Deku actually is able to get the headband away from them, and actually they succeed and win, and they keep the 1000 headband. Basically, pretty much after that, we get switched to the next round, and it's the 1v1s. I'm gonna skip over the downtime because only downtime when they have the little break. It's just Deku flirting with Ochaku and them just sitting next to each other and pretty much them just chilling. As we get switched to the 1v1s, we see Deku goes up against, I think, I remember his name, Shinso? Shinso, I think that's his name, Shinso. And pretty much Shinso starts to talk to Deku, telling him that I'm gonna beat you, and trying to, taunt Deku. Deku in this canon still gets the, pretty much the hint or the tip from the teleport guy about Shinso's powers. Deku is way more smarter and has a little bit more willpower, and pretty much, just walks towards Shinso, not letting him talk anymore after he tries to talk, and actually tries to, well, tries to insult Ochaku. He just manifests red a red silver bat and knocks the absolute taste out of Shinso's mouth. Shinso gets knocked out cold, and pretty much Deku manifests another healing bottle and throws it on Shinso's body, telling Shinso to drink it. Shinso can't talk back, and because his jaw is was nearly almost knocked off of his face. But basically, after that, we see that Deku, gets everybody. We skip a couple, rounds, and we get switched to Todoroki. Basically, before that, in this canon, Ochaku would still go against Bakugo, and she would get her butt handed to her, even with the increased training she got with Deku. Pretty much, Deku was angry by this, and when he goes against Todoroki, he doesn't really want to fight long term with Todoroki. He just tells Todoroki to give up, and as he does this, we see that Deku tries to pacifist this way, pretty much dodging most of all the attacks. Now we're going defense the whole fight. Basically, him telling Todoroki to just stop and let me, pass on and get Bakugo. Pretty much as we see this happen, Todoroki tells Deku to just shut up and shoots more ice blast towards him. Deku has enough of it and manifests a huge type of anime-esque gun. And basically, this gun shoots a huge amount of wind pressure, blasting away all the ice and shooting Todoroki out the ring, making Todoroki not get that character development since Deku doesn't really care. Basically, after that, we get switched to pretty much Deku and pretty much was it? We get switched to Deku and Ochaku. We get switched to Deku getting done with this, and pretty much Deku gets into a fighting stance with Bakugo. Basically, after this, we see that Bakugo because there's a fighting stance with Deku and straight up sprints right towards him. As they fight, basically Deku just takes out a huge OP move and manifests a whole freaking Infinity Stone and sucker punches Bakugo with the Reality Stone, knocking Bakugo out cold and pretty much just turning Bakugo, or not turning back, just straight up using the Reality Stone and pushing Bakugo back. As he looks into the Reality Stone, because he's never manifested something comic book type of stuff, he looks at the Infinity Stone and says, "Huh," and pretty much manifest so much stuff. Him using the Reality Stone to make the speed through his life in the future.
him speeding all the way to, well, him and Ochaku's marriage. Pretty much, Deku basically uses the Reality Stone to pretty much speed blitz his whole life. And in his perspective, it's going at normal speed. And basically, it just passes by his life pretty quickly. Us can just skip past all of his life experiences, the years of him becoming a hero, and everything, and him becoming the number, I guess, the number second or number third hero. And basically, right when he's been a hero for a couple years, about like 5 years, his hair starts to turn white. When at this point, Ochaku and him are married, and as this happens, when his hair turns white or starting to turn white, like the tips of his hair turning white, we see that pretty much his father comes back saying that he's retiring, and Deku has to take up the mantle. Deku's glad about this because Deku was near retiring, because Deku would become a hero to get closer with the world of human, because Deku, since he's so OP at this point, he kind of isn't really categorized as human, since he is immortal. But as we see, pretty much Deku does this before he goes on and tells Ochaku did their marriage about a couple of years when they were fiancé. Deku did tell her about everything about how he's Santa Claus's son and whatnot. Now Santa Claus is a court person, blah blah blah. She got proof because Santa Claus came down, proved her, blah blah. Took her to Christmas Town, blah blah blah. And pretty much she told Deku before he made it official that he was retiring, said that she was pregnant. Deku's extremely happy for this, and basically, well, pretty much is super happy for this. They moved to Santa Clown, and they basically become the next Mrs. and Mr. Claus. Basically, Deku taking the mantle of Santa, him basically speed blitzing through it because, well, he would get the manifest power that his father had. Plus, he would get the powers of his father. He would get the power that his father had, plus the powers his father already has with the magic, with the Santa magic quirk, making him OP as freak, just like his father, and basically him becoming the next Santa. And that's where I'm leaving it off here. If you guys want a part two about, I don't know, about Deku's son, but basically it ended off in a pretty good, go, because Deku did become a hero. He had a happy ending with Ochaku, had a child, and they live in a very, well, nice big Santa like city, because Christmas Town is more like a city than a town, because it's been around for years, centuries even. But basically, we see that, well, they have a pretty good happy ending. So I'll leave it off here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And this is my first time doing a movie what if. But I hope you guys enjoy the Christmas special, and Merry Christmas, guys. Have a nice Christmas.